This is a jazz dance project that we collaborated with the gaming students in BIFE, and we were working with motion capture. So the college has a motion capture suit, and we used that to record our movement, and then the gaming students animated our movement and made us into characters.
So we had to work with choreographing a dance piece for us that would also work for the gaming students. So there could have been kind of like restrictions for us, but there was like boundaries for us, but then not really boundaries for them because they could create kind of any world that they wanted.
Using the motion capture suit was definitely one of the most fascinating parts of it. It's quite a compact system. Instead of having 40 cameras and recording white dots in UV, it's unique sensors on different parts of the actor's body.
It's more like technology based, so like when we were choreographing it, we had to kind of imagine how it would look, because we knew that it wouldn't be the same as the final product. Like, we didn't know what the final product would be, so we kind of, like at the start, we all had a different idea of how it would end up, like the design of it, so that was really different as well. And also like wearing the motion capture suit was kind of difficult because like sometimes a sensor would move, or like something, or like a foot would go backwards and we'd have to start the whole thing again. So
I'd say probably what I found most interesting is like how a movement can look so good on like a human body, and then once it goes into animations, like things can happen where like your feet can sink into the floor, or like you do one slight movement that maybe someone looking at a human wouldn't realise, but on the animation, like because it's animated, like you see it straight away, and like any kind of mistake. So we had to be like very precise and on timing and stuff, like, so it was like really good to like learn that about ourselves and what we're capable of.
It's a fairly long process, but I suppose the footnotes would be meeting with the dancers, figuring out what they want to do so we know where to start. Then we got the ones that we're going to be motion capturing, just get a few preliminary takes so they understood what the software was doing. Then from there, they choreographed what they wanted to do, knowing the limitations of the suit. For example, you can't do groundwork with the suit because you'll end up damaging sensors. From there, they recorded the takes, which took a few attempts because of the software messing up or some sensors weren't working correctly, because they are quite sensitive and are prone to failure, especially with like, aggressive movements like some of the dancers were doing. After that, we took the best takes and the ones that were chosen by the dancers and equipped those to the rigs that they picked out specifically for their own characters in this animation.
I think what I found interesting was how we had to really like think about what type of movement we would have to do because obviously we'd be in the suit and there's sensors on the suit, and we have to be very careful in case we damage them. So I think it was interesting how we'd come up with different movements, but also like make it creative as well.
What happens once we have the data, once we've recorded the motion of the dancer with the suit, we take it out of the software and into a 3D modeling and animating software called Blender. We are used to kind of building the rig, as it's called, the kind of skeleton that you animate that makes the models move in Blender. So having a kind of a rig already made with the motion capture data and having to mix that with the model was quite different.
They brought a lot of ideas to the table, and so did we, and it was just interesting figuring out the technological side of everything and learning about that. It was really good. Obviously I learned from the project was to be more patient, and obviously I learned like the technology side and like lots of stuff from the gaming students, and yeah.
It was fun, yeah. It was interesting to talk with them because they obviously had their own points of view on what they wanted and what they didn't want to work with. Like explaining how the suit worked was a challenge because it's a difficult thing to do, and then trying to understand what they wanted, because the way they think with dance is a lot more different than the way we think with like our own 3D design work. So it was an interesting challenge to work with them.
I learned pretty much a lot about the whole motion capture in general because it was something I'd never done before, and then it was really cool to be able to work with the gaming students because something like before we've never done. So just pretty much all that kind of side of like technology and how to work with like the motion capture suit in general.
I'd say mostly I learned definitely to be flexible, and I also learned a lot about like how our bodies work. Like we learned a lot of what ways we could move and like different ways that we never would have thought trying, and things like to entertain the audience more so, like what would look like pleasing for them, and like it was just really cool to see how we could interact with an animated character with maybe like we might not be able to see them if they're on the screen behind us, so like we had to really be in tune and be in sync with the characters.